Hello, everybody. Welcome to Legacy's Meet the Devs, episode 10. And yeah, we got Chris once again returning for a big round of Q&As. The game's been out for almost a month. Not exactly a month, but it's getting there, right? It's like three weeks.
Yeah. We're closing in on like the first month now, so that's really exciting. And I've been kind of thinking about like this show or the doing the Meet the Devs and kind of like the format and these sort of things. And I think, it's kind of funny just because most of my career has just been doing um class tuning and balance and these sort of things. I know that's kind of what players care most about. How Meet the Devs kind of started was like, hey, you get to meet like, the people who make the levels and make people who do the sound and stuff like that. But I do think that generally everybody just cares about like the current state of the game and balance and that sort of stuff, which is totally normal and totally fine. So basically just going to try to incorporate that to each of these and just kind of talk about each of the classes and that sort of thing. So that is going to be part of the show. Um, so yeah, let me just kind of bring it up here. Yeah. So first of all, I kind of want to talk about like the schedule and like how we're going to be doing updates and like these sort of things. Essentially, we're going to do like immediate fixes for anything like really big issues that pop up, whether it's like a really bad crash or some exploit or some server issue that pops up. Our server team is constantly monitoring the service and constantly doing updates. We don't even report a lot of the updates that we do, although we've been trying to do at least updating the community in the what's server status or the what's new channel, just so that people know like, hey, if something goes wrong with the server, that's probably why. It's like we're doing some optimization to it. So yeah, we are doing so that is like a constant priority. We're constantly doing that. And then we're also doing like hot fixes basically every 2 weeks or so, sometimes even more frequent, just on like class balance, progression tuning, that sort of thing. Generally on the progression, like on crafting and finding items, we're feeling like in a kind of a good spot with how the game is right now. But we're, if things pop up there, we'll be addressing some stuff. I'll talk about this patch that we're going to be doing later on in the show, with some spoilers there of some itemization tuning that we're going to be doing. But generally, it's kind of settling, I feel like there. On the class front, there's a number of issues that pop up just as the meta develops, as people get more sophisticated with the classes, as people try out and min-max different gear sets and stuff like that. Other things pop up, and as you guys like progress through, say the crafting bench over time, that kind of thing. Um, uh, so there is that. And then we have larger content patches that we're going to be putting in, and these will be every few months or so. We're trying to figure out the right cadence for this because it's challenging to do like mid-wipe or mid-season content updates. Like if you add a whole new lodge module or something, it will just be really disruptive. Basically right now with the game is we're kind of like at season 0, so it is sort of like chaotic, and that's, sorry about that, but it is going to be a little bit like that. But as we mature and grow and we do actual wipes and seasons and stuff like that, we shouldn't do like huge changes mid-season. But anyway, so we got to figure that out of like what a good cadence for that is too. But basically our next larger content patch, which is um the wizard and a new dungeon map and some other progression content. We're targeting mid-May for that one, and I'll talk about a bit later of like what goes in there. Um, and then I just want to talk about, like I mentioned, like do like this little state of the classes every time we do this show. And I'll go through each class and talk about like how we're feeling about each class, things that we're working on tuning or updating. First, we could start with the warrior. The last kind of content patch that or the last bug balance patch that we did, we tuned Death Ball, and we tuned just general the power of the warrior down a bit. I think he's in a better spot for sure right now, but I do think there's some things that are kind of bugs or just not really or not really intentional that we are going to address. One of them is the ear damage buff. So when you bring in ears, when you loot ears, like the kill trophies from players, it gives you a stacking buff. There's one that gives you health, and then there's one that gives you damage. I think Executioner is the damage one, the trait. They're a little too good, and because originally we weren't quite sure, like how often will players kill each other, how on average, how often will they get ears, these sort of things. Um, Turns out it's a little more often than we kind of thought, and which is totally fine. It's just that we have to tune this buff, so it's a little too good, and we don't want everybody to have to wear that set piece. It's supposed to be a choice, and so we're going to balance that a little bit. And then the second one is, we did some adjustments to Death Ball, but we also want each of the weapons to feel very distinct and useful. I mean, it's part of the warrior's kit that he could swap weapons and they all have different strengths and weaknesses. And so we want to make the mace feel a little bit better and make the axe feel like it has an identity. Kind of the intention with each is that the mace and shield is supposed to be kind of like the defensive kit, like the um almost like the sword and board kind of fantasy, right? And so I do think it feels like that in some sense with you get more block, right? But what if we also did like a trait or something that you get like passive armor when you're in it or something like that to further emphasize that? Or for the axe, we can maybe juice up or make the Q kind of feel different than say the press and hold on the left normal. So these things like this we could improve, I feel like. I also think the early level for the warrior feels right. He smooths out over time and he becomes better over time, which is hilarious because it feels so traditional with warriors in every game. But um, part of this is because he gets really important traits later on, which is kind of like the for one the ear damage buff one. Another one is the absorb when you enrage one, etc. So we may like rejigger those where they're at just so that it smooths out the warrior's experience a little bit better. And then the another one is that we kind of feel so it's not intentional in the game that you hard counter classes or one class just dumpsters on another class, etc. But we do think that the warrior is a little good against the rogue, maybe a little too good. And I know everybody's probably frustrated with rogues and just like good or whatever, but so it is something top of mind. There's a bunch of reasons for this. One is the rogue has no like unstoppable attacks, red attacks that pierce blocks. So warriors who are sophisticated can kind of just like can turtle pretty well. So anyway, we'll look at that. And then he needs like some new abilities. The warrior's probably the least. Ironically, it's the first class we worked on, but it has like the least number of abilities. Each class should have really like 9. 3 in each category. And so we have some other ideas for this. Maybe I'll pitch some of these in the warrior chat. But I had one idea, which is like if you use like the chain grip and you pull somebody, right? What if he had and when you do that, there's a trait that anchor where you can anchor them down. But what if you could throw like the anchor itself and then AoE anchor targets or something and stuff like that. So there's a few other ideas that we had for different abilities that what's interesting is we could think about like what are some of the challenges or holes that the warrior has in its gameplay and how to emphasize those through new abilities. That's best way to design the game. But anyway, any thoughts there, Andre? I see you grinning.
I'm looking at the chat and it's funny when you mention an ability like that. It's so polarizing. How people say yes, AoE chains, and how people are like, oh god, no. We're identifying warrior mains in chat.
I mean, the goal should be like some are general purpose, like generally good, and others have more niche cases that you change up based on like the experience you're doing, whether it's like you're queuing with a group or doing like a hard PvE run or something like that. So, but yeah, these are just concepts, by the way. Anyway, nothing's coming in just yet. So, all right, any more thoughts on warrior before we move on? And by the way, if you have questions, keep them, and then at the end we could answer any questions, whether it's on stuff we're talking about on on any of these classes or anything like that. Yeah, priest. So first thought is that I feel like the priest is a little too generally the ranged right now, kind of a little too weak against the melee. Higher tier players do kind of feel like, oh, the priest and the hunter are fine once they get these tools or once they get this like gameplay. Once you know how to play, right? but I think that is a little too narrow. For example, the priest, like if you just deleted Holy Sparks from the game, I think she'd really struggle. Like, and that's kind of where like the higher tier players who do become sophisticated, like, oh, well, you just got to play Sparks really well. You got to get this build or that sort of thing. So she's a little too dependent on Holy Sparks and some other things in the game, and so we want to like address that. And then in the meantime, also juice her up in other ways so that she's more accessible and more like elegant in terms of the experience that you'll have just generally for a new player against a rogue or getting ganked in solos or something like that. So we have a lot of ideas on how to address that. um Too early to talk about them, but uh expect some changes there, and we won't just like nerf sparks and just not address the other thing. It will all happen in tandem. um so there's that. Uh, we know there's a lot of item perk bugs right now with her gear. And so the team has already been working on fixing a lot of those bugs already, have banged a lot of those out. And so we'll continue to fix all of those. We may redesign some of them too. Like, some of them that we thought were cool when we made them, we're like, I don't know anymore. Like maybe they just never really developed like a use for them. For example, one that I don't particularly love is like I think it's the Divinity Helm, which is like uh it changes a gleaming star to like a heal, and then I like the idea. It's just like really narrow, and then when I queue solo I'm like that's terrible. And anyway, so there's some things that we could tune. And then the last thing is, I think I was looking at all the different weapon kits, and a lot of them just don't have jump attacks or evade attacks. And really, to make all the weapons feel like completely done, they need to have like a full kit. Like they need to have a jump attack, a evade attack, and these other things like that. And so we will be updating some of the priest ones over time, pretty much all the classes. Um, Pretty much all the classes of just fleshing out the different weapon kits. Ironically, some of the ones that are most furthest along are the recent ones, like Deathball and the Sword and Buckler. They have a lot of different move sets in them. But so anyway, we'll be adding these things to the scepter and staff as well, just to make them more different and make them more interesting and have more depth of gameplay.
Yeah, I can add
Um,
something to the priest. Uh,
yeah.
we also should, and we have talked about taking another look at her skills. Like for instance, some of the skills
Yeah.
in the skill bucket don't seem different enough. Like the mirror one, especially. You have the mirror and the one that just moves forward a little bit, and we are discussing like different kind of variations of that. Maybe the mirror follows you. Maybe it reflects projectiles. We're just
Hmm.
we, I've actually seen a lot of messages in chat saying people are saying you don't really want to press mirror. It's like a button you don't press as much. So we are aware of that, and we are talking about changing that, as well as the heavens ward. I think it is the one that moves forward. That one also has a
Hmm.
couple of known issues. Like sometimes it gets stuck in terrain a lot. It doesn't spawn sparks every single time. It has like Seven's
Hmm.
Wrath. That's the one. Yeah. So we are gonna update the some of the skills as well. That's it.
Yeah, I've been playing with. There's a lot of crazier ideas on the preset I like to explore with some of her abilities, just to make them more interesting and very different. Um, Yeah. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But yeah, but anyway, we do agree like some of our abilities too could be updated to make them have better uses and a little more be more interesting. So anyway, that's the priest. Okay. Next one, Rogue. Um, yeah, so the Rogue again had some tuning in the last hot balance patch, and we tuned down Phantom Dagger and a few different things, and so we feel pretty decent, pretty good about the Rogue right now. That said, I do think they get a little more counter than we'd like against a warrior, and so we are going to look at that as well. And then next is there are some bugs with some of the rogue abilities. So the rogue abilities, you know, this is kind of my fault because I'm like, oh, I just love this idea of Visage or Phantom Veil or Phantom Dagger. They're all like really kind of complicated abilities to engineer. All the engineers just like, oh my God, please. But yeah, they're really cool. It's just sometimes they do bug out, and so we're all working on like bug fixing these and trying to make them work. But bear with us as we work on those. But I do notice like a lot of rogues, got you guys on stream and you play and stuff. I'm like, wow, you guys are so good with this, and it adds a lot of cool skill expression stuff like that. So we want to soldier through it. It's just, yeah, there are some bugs here. Um, and then the last one is like little quality of life stuff. Like we did tone down Poison Dart. It was insane. I felt like Poison Dart was like better than the longbow. But we did tone that down, but maybe a little bit too much. And so I know I heard, some issues with they feel like the dart speed is a little too slow. We hear you. And then the last one is invis time. We toned down the invis time on Shroud at least, I think we did, or maybe them all. But yeah. And so one unintentional thing with that is that it created this window where the mobs like will re-aggro you because the invis time isn't that long. And so we're gonna look at that again and see maybe we go too far with that. And so we're gonna, probably revert that one. But so, but anyways, so that's kind of on the rogue. But yeah, if you guys have any more thoughts on the rogue or issues or things like that, we'll love to hear them. Really happy with actually a lot of the rogue's kit. They're one of the classes that has three good options, I feel like, in each tier. And feeling pretty good about those. We know like on the daggers, the um spider bite maybe could be improved a little bit, but other than that, yeah, we look forward to hear your thoughts on that. Yeah, I see some thoughts on claws. I do think, the claws we've gone through a lot of iteration. Originally, they used to just like add a little bit of buildup, but then we changed it so that it changes all the normals to also do the buildup, which we think feels good. There is some UX, UI things with that. Like you don't really know, like you don't really get a lot of feedback when you're doing afflictions on targets. But yeah, so what it does is when you press the claw, it makes all of your normal attacks do build up of that affliction. So really, I haven't seen rogues do this too much, but the disease affliction is incredibly powerful in PvP, especially. It's like half of your stamina. I think it reduces your stamina in half, or it's regen in half, one of them. But yeah, it's pretty gnarly. So, yeah. So anyways, yeah, that's rogue. And then finally, the hunter. We know Cyclone is too good. It's like the uptime on it is too high. And so we are going to address that. It'll probably get some sort of short cooldown regardless. Again, Cyclone has kind of turned into this thing similar to the Priest where it's like um uh they're dependent on it, and we don't want you to be dependent on one ability. And so we will be addressing the hunter in different ways. Part of the reason why she uses Cyclone is not so that she could just go through the map like at Mach speed or that sort of thing. It's really just for her survival. And we know like her default survival is a little, not great against melee, especially for new players. So we're going to address that in different ways. One bug right now is that when you air vault, when you disengage, when you kick off a player to get vault backwards, it's supposed to give you immune frames. And right now it doesn't. It's a bug. Same thing with Elven Dance. You're supposed to get immune frames while you do the Q. And so we're going to restore those and add those back. So you'll have immune frames when you air vault and immune frames when you Elven Dance with the Elven Bow. And so that will be in the next balance patch. The next thing here is that the arrows are a little clunky. I mean, these are one of the spells that we added at last that we weren't completely done with. Kind of the idea was with the arrows is that, so we have these afflictions in the game. There's a fire affliction, there's a frost one, there's going to be more in the future, like a lightning and fire one that the wizard has. And the different arrows, elemental arrows, build up some of these afflictions. And so the hunter, one of her strengths actually is that she can apply these afflictions. she has the largest variety of afflictions she can apply, and so that was something we're going to be fleshing out over time and add it juicing up all the arrows. And I know like one actually interesting thing with the arrows I think is kind of cool actually that we do like is that you can cue an arrow and then Elven Dance and it's just kind of homes onto the target. So that is kind of cool. But anyways, we know like these are a little clunky right now and could use some love, and so we are going to work on that. And then another thing is I've been actually playing with this myself in solos is Sentinel Call, the little bird that you summon. We love the idea of like the hunter summoning the bird as like a little pet. It lets you solo like elites and stuff like that. But it's a little clunky. The AI on it is not great, so we're going to work on that. And then I also noticed in chat people talking about the longbow queue. That is another thing I forgot to put up here. We are looking at that too, potentially redesigning it to be something different. Um, you know, don't know what that is just yet. I kind of like how the longbow queue is. I don't hate that ability. It's just a little niche. Anyway, we will look at that as well of improving doing something else for the longbow queue. Yeah, anything else I'm missing here, Andre, or notes in chat?
I will notice that we found a bug on the hunter and the priest only, where if you were in combat, like actively attacking with your weapon, your energy regen was reduced by half.
Oh, yeah,
So that's why maybe for
right.
a hunter and for the priest, it would feel like you're out of energy a lot faster than rogue or warrior. So that was a bug. We found it, and it's either fixed already or getting fixed soon. And then on top of that, I saw some mentions of Beetle. And the Beetle, I think, got buffed already. It used to have 2 HP, so it would die accidentally by just anything. And now it's been buffed to like 100 HP, where you can still kill it if you target it specifically, but it's not gonna necessarily die from like accidental AoE damage. Died from existence, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it also can see stealth, right, too. Is that on
Yeah,
live as well?
yeah, it
Yeah.
just can smell the rogue now.
Yeah, I have been running the Beetle too because it's another thing I think that could use some iteration and improvements over time. But one thing I think that would be good with it too is like if it like goes to a target and then that target dies or runs away, it could reburrow, and just so you don't have to put a new one out. But anyway, okay, those are all some good things. All right. So then after this, I thought, so this is kind of the class updates here. And then, yeah, if you have more questions on the class and stuff like that, we'll have some time at the end to meet the devs to answer those. And of course, we'll monitor the chats too. But next thing I want to talk about is kind of hot topics in the community that we have heard you talk about. Um, and so all of these are like not like simple um conversation or simple topics, or they're all complicated really, but I will go through each of these topics that you guys have had. I have answered some of these a little bit in the Discord or in the FAQ, etc., but can kind of talk through all these. First one is service stability. As I kind of mentioned in the previously, it's something ongoing that we're constantly improving and constantly patching and monitoring the servers. And so you will notice some instability as we kind of iterate and improve there. We've gone from like really safe fixes to more of like, oh, these could be risky fixes. And that's why sometimes like the server it's down for more people because we're trying to like do more riskier fixes to improve general stability for everybody. And so, anyways, that is something that I know is a hot topic, and I hate it when I'm like go to sleep or right go to sleep and the server goes down. I'm like crap. I'm like trying to figure out if someone is available to kind of fix that. So anyway, we know like that is a thing, and it's ongoing. We're working on that. The second one is Duo Q. Yeah, I just came out of a meeting with some of the people in the team about the Duo Queue, and we're talking about that. So our stance that I have communicated that is in the FAQ is just that not against the idea of Duo Queue. The reason why we don't have it right now is um, uh, because we're in early access and we're kind of growing the game. And it's something we can introduce later on. We do have solo, which is like only solos, and we have mix where you can queue solos, duos, or trios into that. And so, and there's other games in the genre that have this. For example, Hunt Showdown. It's very similar. They have like kind of a mixed queue too. And looking at the data, like in mixed, I think it's like 60% or so play threes and like um 30 something percent Q duos and like only like 3-4% Q. Numbers don't match up, but it's the vibes are around those numbers. Uh and so but anyway, uh my personal kind of thought is like IQ duos into trios, and I don't think it's that bad. I feel like I can, we could hold our own even against trios there. But I understand the player psychology and the view that you want to queue into duos and only be matched with duos, and I get that. So anyway, we're talking about it. It's possible we may just patch in a duos queue at some point in time. We have to change the UI. There's a few other things that we have to do there. So I think early access is a time to experiment and try different things. And so that is currently what we're talking about doing is adding a duos queue. And so probably we'll kind of keep solos, trios, and or solos and mixed, and then just add duos. Um, so that's currently what we're talking about doing right now. Um, so that's our thoughts on duos right now. Next one is VoIP toxicity. VoIP is something that I think a lot of players really enjoy just because it creates all these interesting moments and situations. And I've had a lot of fun with it, but I can understand that there are like players who are incredibly toxic on VoIP, and I get that. And so it is kind of like used at your own risk. My guidance, if you have bad interactions with VoIP for right now, is to kind of turn the feature off, and so it's kind of opt in. Something I think that we will do over time is have a report feature for VoIP where if someone was really toxic or really kind of, I don't want to say toxic because it's always subjective, right? But more of just like, I don't know, using really, you know, um, racist or language or something like that. Like that's over the line, we should have a code of conduct there. And so we'll probably have some sort of report feature for that over time. But for now, my guidance would be if it tilts you, if it's like too much, I would really kind of turn the feature off for now. If you look at what other games do, right, there's only a couple solutions. One is you just don't have the feature. Or you have what Call of Duty does or what Apex does is they have AI that monitors the VoIP. Players don't love that because you're like, what is the AI doing? It's transcribing me. It's like, I don't know if that's great. And then it really like the AI has a lot of false positives, right? You say Bob Saget and it's like you're banned or whatever. So it's like, I don't think that's a good idea either. And then usually what players do in COD or Apex is they don't even use VoIP anymore because they're like, um, they don't want to get banned accidentally, right? So I don't think that's really good option either. So that's our current thinking on it right now is like, look, if you're having bad experience with it, just kind of disable it for now. But we may add a report feature later on where if there is really toxic players that uh there'll be some sort of pipeline to deal with that. But anyway, short term, just kind of turn it off if it's too much. All right, next one is new player experience. I love that the community really wants to grow the game and to add new players to it. And that's kind of the last topic here. But and I do agree, one thing that we added before we shipped EA was Goldbrook, which is a tutorial map. And looking at the data, a lot of players do play this, especially new players that kind of learn the game, which is I'm really happy about that. But I think there's more we could do for new players. One thing we're talking about doing right now is adding a newbie queue. So when players queue the game and they've only played X hours, they're really new to it, they get put into their own greenwood with other new players only. So you're not, queuing in there against some of the creators or whatever, getting dumpstered. So that is something we're also talking about adding in a future patch as well. So we think that we could help with that. Another thing too that we will talk about in this deck is introducing this role in the Discord, in the community, and trying to really nudge and encourage other players to try to help each other and, mentor each other and help nurture new players. I think we all want the game to succeed. We all want more players to join it. And so trying to create new systems and new things for this over time. But anyway, that's the short term. That's some thoughts there. Next topic, teaming. Again, this is another topic that we have talked about in the FAQ and on the Discord a bit. Sung posted something, I think, earlier this week talking about teaming and our current stance on teaming. So what is teaming? Teaming is, it mostly happens in solos, I feel like, which is that two players will group up together and in the session and team against other players or teaming against like creatures or bosses, stuff like that. Our kind of view right now is like, first of all, teaming of like organized teaming, like, hey, cue this, Greenwood, 3, 2, 1, go, and then like we'll meet up and just like destroy everybody. That is against the rules, and if we notice that, we will ban you. Please report that. And it's best if you report that with like a video and evidence and stuff like that. What we're going to be adding is a form that you have and that we're going to post in Discord that you fill out with put the player's name, screenshot, or video. I encourage you to use the Steam video recorder. It's amazing. And so if you could include that, that really helps us out. And then, it's going to be, you get a short warning for like a day ban, and then it escalates, right? Up to a permanent ban. And so that is against the rules, right? Pre-teaming is bad. So, however, if you do find another player in a session and like, for example, what I do sometimes when I'm queuing solo, if I see a warrior in blues killing a priest in junk gear, I'm like, okay, I'll just kill that warrior. And so that is not teaming. That is legit. That's just like gameplay, I feel like. And I've had sometimes when I'm helping another player, the other player get mad, like I'm teaming or something like that, which I'm not really like teaming. I'm just kind of like playing the game. I'm just like helping another player. Part of the genre, part of this world PvP idea is that it's open-ended, it's wild, it's unpredictable, it's unscripted, right? And so some of those moments are just legit unscripted gameplay. And so I think a lot of times too, there's like these false positives of like, oh, they teamed me, but in reality they didn't. They didn't like coordinate. It's just like some players saw another player ganking another player. Maybe they thought it was unfair, or maybe they think, oh my gosh, I always get killed on my priest, so I'm going to help this priest out, right? I think that is a legitimate, okay thing. And so I think a lot of us should just, we just have to be mindful of just, it's hard to know at any given moment whether something is natural, organic, or part of the game or coordinated. Like we said, the coordinated part is against the rules. If we notice you are coordinating queuing and meeting up and like dumpstering players in the lobby, we will take action on you, and that is right. But the other part of it is a gray area. And so anyway, that is our current stance. What we're going to do is enforce that stance of pre-teaming is bad, adding a form and a flow for that. Anyway, that's the next step there, and we'll continue to monitor it as well. I also think, like I mentioned, we're going to probably introduce the duos queue, and so I think that will also help alleviate some things in solos where players just want to play together as two players, and so they're doing that, maybe teaming just so to create their own duo queue essentially. And so I think that will also help with that. All right, that's the stance on teaming. And then the last one is, I noticed a lot of discussion about, legacy of like, how is the game doing? How do we grow it? How should we do marketing, etc. like that? I really appreciate that. I love that our players really want to grow the game and stuff like that. Of course, we do too. However, we're in early access. We're developing the game over time. There's a lot of changes and improvements that we're doing. Everybody on the community adding input and like helping us test stuff. We love that. This Notorious has investors. We have partners that we work with. They're all really loving the game, the potential. They're all super aligned with us and supporting us. So we feel really good energy. Let us worry about the marketing. Let us worry about the future of growing the game, these things like that. That is our, whatever I say, you guys will do anyway. But that is something that is our responsibility as we do patches, for example, this patch that we're targeting in May, like mid-May or late May, with the wizard and stuff like that, those are good opportunities for us to do more marketing and grow the game. Maybe we do a free weekend, maybe we discount the game, maybe we there's all these like little things that we could do to grow the player base over time. But those are the times to do it. Those are the times to like grow the game. Those are the times to introduce new players, is when we do patches with new content, new experiences, and that sort of thing. Anyway, that's our current stance on that. And we're always open to your ideas, the best way to market the game. You guys are the experts of this game at this point. And so let us know if there's other things that we're not thinking about that we could do. All right. Next topic. So talking about improvements that we could do to marketing and improvements that we could do to growing the game, one thing that we didn't launch with early access is a creator program. And so we are adding a creator program now that you can apply to. Sung will probably post the details, or maybe he has already. I don't know if he wants to come up. Maybe he could talk about it. But basically, what you will gain with the creator program is priority access to major updates. You will be able to get to do Twitch drops. And so we've never done Twitch drops before, and this is something that we probably would do when we do this next bigger patch and later in late spring. And also just different community giveaways. You'll get Steam keys to give away and different roles and swag. And we want to grow this over time and add more things to this over time. So anyways, this is going to be our first foray to this. And like I mentioned, Sung will post the details about that and all of that. And next, and I just saw he updated it. So we've been thinking about what do we want to name this, like veteran, knights, wardens. So anyways, we're calling it Legacy Warden status. And so wardens are basically a role in Discord in our community where players get access to when we do like PTRs or like test realms and stuff like that for new content. We're going to be doing one for the dungeon and probably the wizard and other things as well. So if you want to get access to that, the wardens get priority to that. In order to be a warden, you have to be in good standing with the studio, help new players when they come into the Discord. It's something that right now is going to be a little ad hoc. The moderators and the team at the studio will, we're all in Discord. If you see us with the blue text or the red text, this is either someone moderator or someone that works in Notorious. And so we'll be giving out this role over time to incentivize, good behavior with the community. And you'll get some of these additional benefits, and we'll grow this over time for more benefits too, perhaps maybe in-game title or something like that. We'll talk about it. However, it is, once you get it, it could be revoked at any time. So anyway, there's that. All right, and I think that's kind of it for now. But like I mentioned, this patch that we're all hard at work with the studios working on right now is targeted towards middle of May, towards the end of May. One of the biggest things is the wizard, which Andre and I were looking at, just last night actually, and then the dungeon map that the team is working on. So yeah, at this point in time, we could maybe invite some people up for questions or that sort of thing. Andre.
Mr. Hartcliffe.
Hello there.
Hello.
Hi. Just wanted to ask, personally, I always bring two weapons in my on my character. Let's say sword and board and staff on priest and what else. Do you guys have any intentions of maybe giving every class the opportunity to use two weapons and maybe the warrior three, or is it gonna stick to the way it is?
Yeah, we've had this question in the past as well. Current stance is right now to keep it how it is, where classes have one weapon and warriors could wield two and swap between them. I do. This is something I didn't mention as well that we're going to be patching in the March patch is to add. So when you weapon swap, it will add a cooldown to the ability, to the Q on the weapon. to de-incentivize players from having to do this weapon swap mid-combat. I don't mind if you like swap your weapon, you know, before you go into a dungeon or underground area or whatever you want to do mid-match. Like you get a better weapon, you swap it. That's totally fine. But like weapon swapping in combat is not intentional, and so we will address that to de-incentivize you from having to do that, because it'll just become annoying anyway. That said, we will keep it in mind. It would be interesting over time. We want to add, like, I have ideas for like fourth weapons for each class too, or we do on the team. And so maybe when we do that, then now we have enough to maybe we could think about letting you swap between two weapons or something like that. I don't know. We have to see in the future. But for now, yeah, kind of stay how it is.
All right, appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think good question.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, that does come up quite often, that question. And I think Chris addressed it well. Chris, give me a new number up to 30 something, up to 40.
Okay. 20.
Oh my God, I have to scroll down so much. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Mr. Necrotic.
Hey, good
hello.
afternoon, guys.
Yeah.
I just have a question regarding new players. In a motion to make the experience better for newer players, I have a question regarding your tooltips in equipment and skills. Do you have any plans on really explaining what some of these terms mean? I feel that it would help new players understand what they're getting into when they gear up or when they're picking a skill. It just feels that they're too ambiguously stated.
Yeah, good question. I agree with you. Right now in the tooltips, we do not even say the value of a lot of the like, some of them do tell you, oh, your damage will increase by 30% or something like that, but most of them do not. Part of the reason is because we didn't yet develop the tech to do like tokenized tooltips basically, so that because part of the problem, right, if you do put the damage number in the tooltip, stuff like that, it's like anytime you tune it, you got to update that. And there's a workflow that you have to work by. It sounds easy and whatever, but if you notice in the last patch when we nerfed Deathball, we didn't update the tooltip. We forgot to do that. And so it's kind of like this human error thing that we have to fix. And so we are going to add like tokenized tooltips. So we will have the damage numbers in the tooltips for sure. So we're going to do that. And then in terms of just like more information about how the ability works, that sort of thing. I love that idea. Something that we want to do is update the spell book. Like if you go to the spell book, for example, it doesn't tell you like what the jump attack is for the weapon or these things like that. And so we want to add more of those things into the spell book over time. There is some like trivia for each ability that like for example, like the Elven Dance, using Elven Dance to shoot an elemental arrow. It was something we didn't plan, we didn't design for, but it kind of was a thing. And so we could add that to the tooltip, but then now the tooltip just becomes like a freaking essay, right? Of like how much stuff is on there. We got to think about that. Maybe we add like a tips or something for each ability. Anyway, I love the idea. I totally agree with you. There's a lot of like hidden depth to the game that we don't really surface very well. But yeah, anyway, I agree, and we'll be doing that over time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. And just to add to that a little bit, I think he might have also been mentioning, because I saw people in chat mentioning stuff like, for instance, Spider Bite. Spider Bite, we have it mentioned on some perks, but we never exactly say what Spider Bite is. So we know what it is because we we made it, but it doesn't really say anywhere.
That's
an example of something we might want to add in the skill book, where daggers would have like a description of what their right click does, like all their combinations. But there's also stuff like unstoppable, unblockable. What's the difference between incapacitate and stun? Roots, snares, that one's obvious, but. And also the status effects. For now, if you go to your status page, the one where you see your health and all your like armor and everything, if you mouse over those, especially if you scroll down, you'll see like all the afflictions. So you can mouse over those and you see what they do exactly. But we agree that's probably not the most accessible and the best place for you to have them.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. Definitely, I think that in Spider Bite is a good example of a weapon attack. It's a press and hold on the right click. And so, yeah, we got to add, I would love to just add those to the spellbook in the weapon so that
mhm.
you know what the name is and all that sort of thing for sure. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna invite. I'm gonna pick one myself. CT Kidney.
Okay.
I noticed he really wanted to join.
Hey, what's up, people?
Hey.
What up?
Pretty glad I got a chance to ask this question. I was originally going to ask about priests and not being a spark merchant, but y'all covered that. So currently, since y'all changed Morthog and the loot in the area, it's been pretty much a kill Morthog or camp the people who are killing Morthog kind of meta. I've noticed like 4 or 5 different groups out there all the time. And is that something that might be looking to be addressed? Like maybe adding more areas of interest with comparable loot or like something along those lines? Or is it just like the nature of the game? Since it has the best loot, it's going to be getting camped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I had a meeting right before this call that I wanted to talk about that, but it went along on some other topic. Is Colin in the chat or no? Yeah, this is quite more of a question for him than me. But so we're going to update Morthog's room to have another exit so that, you know, if someone is trying to like gank you or you want to abort mission and you want to get out of there will be like another way to get out. So that is one thing we want to do. The door closing and locking you in is a temporary thing. I'm not sure if we're going to keep that long term. It was more to fix kind of the issue, the core issue is that the room just has all these kind of like areas where you can kind of cheese the boss and stuff like that. So it was kind of like a band-aid to kind of fix the room. I don't know if we're going to keep a door locking the encounter forever. Part of this is like an experiment to see like what can a boss be like in this like world PvP zone, right? Like if you played other MMOs like usually it's free for all, right? Like it's you kill a boss and if you get ganked, you get ganked. If maybe you don't, maybe you coordinate, stuff like that. It's so open-ended. And so I kind of don't think it's not supposed to be intentional that there is supposed to be a door. It's supposed to be kind of open the entire time. But then we have other considerations of like, well, does the boss have to be as hard as he is, right? Part of it was Morthog's kind of tuned for more of like green gear, but of course players could still do it in junk gear if you're skilled enough, or whites, I guess. But so I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts here, and some of it we have to kind of like feel out. This is like the whole point of early access and stuff like that. So yeah. Anyway, I don't know the quite answer to that. I do think that it's not supposed to be locked. I think, and we're gonna add for sure. I know another exit, but yeah.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the
Yeah,
question.
but I have noticed that I was spectating the other day and I noticed like 2 guys doing Morthog and then a squad of 3 just like vultures just licking their chops, looking
Yeah,
at them like
they're just waiting outside the door. That's I can see them peeking through.
yeah, I was like, oh my god. I felt like I was doing World Dragons and WoW and just like a horde.
Oh, bro,
just looking
don't
at
even
it.
bring me back to that. Don't even bring me back to that, please.
Yeah.
I was a priest in that game too, man. I had no escape in that game either. I was done.
Right. It's funny because I added a spell for priests in that game called Feathers or whatever that was sprint, which kind of feels like
Oh, that was you?
Sparks. Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate it, brother. I really do. We couldn't move. We were on wheelchairs until that moment. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We could
All right,
also
well,
just,
good question.
I don't know. We were also talking about adding more map events on the map in general, because right now he's also saying that everyone's kind of concentrating in that boss area just to either kill the boss or to camp the people killing the boss. But if we have like more events throughout the map at different times, you know, it might create a reason for people to just move away from the boss for a little bit to go to do something else. You know, that's like a different kind of timed event.
Right. Yeah, I know some people talk about roaming bosses. That is something that we want to do as well.
Yeah.
Probably in addition to Morthog, like some other roaming boss.
All right, I'm gonna invite. Who do we invite on stage? Do you want to give me a number, or do you want me to pick? let's do the first person that raised their hand.
Oh,
like
you
an
you
hour
go
ago.
for it. You go for it. Yeah.
Mr. Pondo. Hello, hello.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, I can.
Hi, fantastic game. Absolutely love it. I'm curious about the long-term monetization, how Steam sales have done. I know that you said you have investors. Do you feel it seems like you're pretty comfortable about the money flow right now? $25 is super reasonable, especially today with games price increases. I'm curious what the long term looks like, if there's going to be paid DLC, if it's going to be cosmetic only, if we're going to have to pay for extra classes. What does that kind of look like for you in a live service model?
Yeah, it's a good question, and part of me is I'm reluctant to talk about it because it could always change over time. But I will say that the next step that we're probably going to be doing is adding value to the additional DLCs we have, which is the Founders Edition and the God Tier. And so we'll be adding more stuff to those editions, to the existing people who have them, and then also to other people who are looking at purchasing them. For example, we've heard the feedback that the God tier only really has like a cosmetic for the hunter. What about some of the other classes? And so we totally get that. And so we're going to be adding some things to those. And so that will help because new people who maybe didn't want to purchase those may purchase those ones. So that is like the next step we're going to do. We have a lot of ideas and cosmetics later on that we will ask the community what you guys think. Some ideas here have to do, we have one idea, for example, which we wanted to do actually for early access, but we didn't get it in there, which is when you kill players, you could put your banner into their corpse, right? And then you can customize the banner. Like if you've played, gosh, what is it called? Mountain Blade, I think. They have like a banner customization kind of thing where you can customize your banner of like, different pull or different emblem and stuff like that. And so we want to do something like that. And we have this cool idea too. When you click the banner, you can kind of see the other players like name and some of their achievements and titles and stuff like that, which we don't have either right now, but that would be another thing we would add there. So, banners is one thing we could add, customizing the banners. Some of it also could be unlocked through doing things in the game, not just purchasing. But anyway, that is like one idea. Others is other just character customizations of different. We have a lot of different culture kits that we have for the classes. The idea with the game is there's all these kingdoms in the game, right? And the idea is like when you create a character, you choose the kingdom that your character comes from, and though that kingdom has its own ethnicity and culture and stuff like that. Like for example, the snow elf Eldinar, that's like a kingdom of an elf, right? And so there'll be more of those as well that we could introduce over time. Another idea of monetization, for example, is if you ever played Path of Exile, they have this system called they have stash tabs too, and they have stash containers. They're basically the same thing, they're merged or whatever. But one kind of cool thing they have in there is they have affinity stash tabs, right? Where like it has its own little UI. So imagine like a goblin or an alchemist box or something, and it organizes all your potions and stuff like that. That kind of thing. So, we have a lot of different ideas actually that I think actually accentuate the experience of the game and that sort of thing that we could add over time. But, if you guys have more ideas, we're always listening as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, good question though.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Let's take two more questions. For this one, let's ask Song for a number, because let's give him the power. Song, give me a number in chat, and I'll invite.
He's
from,
gonna
1
post in
to
chat.
41.
Okay.
Yeah. You pick a number, Song. 1 to 41, or you can pick a person. Don't make me count.
We have a lot of new people asking
38.
questions, which is good.
Jeez. Okay, I'll just go from the bottom. That's easy actually. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, we got person here. Hello,
hey guys.
sir.
How's it going? Yeah, quick one. There's a couple of games in the genre that do things like transition points in maps, and I was wondering, is this something that's being considered to kind of add value into potentially late spawns where you find yourself running around. A lot of the key objectives have already been taken, but you can go, okay, well, the crypt has a transition point into a deeper, more difficult zone that we can move down into and start working from there, rather than, okay, I'll just pick up the scraps and move to exit.
Yeah, yeah, you kind of like talk about like a roguelike thing where you like move up to another floor, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like Tarkov has the transition points to move between maps, and Dark and Darker has the red portals to go deeper.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Yeah, we have a lot of ideas. One of them is this topic. You know, I thought of this idea called epic adventure, right? Where you move from one map to another map to another map, and you can't go back to Stonehaven, which is back to like the, you know, back to the hub. In between, you have to like survive going from one map to another map to another map. And maybe there's like little like you could pitch a tent, or you could pitch like a fire to met up in between there, but it is just like you're transitioning from one map to the other map to the other map. And yeah, we call it epic adventure, right? um I love that idea. We just have to have more maps to do, to do that.
Yeah.
But in the future we will, and I think I would like to do that. Also had ideas of like what we call wayfarer maps, which is basically it's more of just like it's more of a trek. It's not so much of just like looting and extracting. It's more of like a journey. You know, the fantasy, if you ever watch like Lord of the Rings, is like when they're going through Path of Caracas or whatever, and it's just like it's more about like a journey. It's not so much about like looting and killing and extracting. And there's all these like things there. And maybe what you do is you go from one map, and then you have a wayfarer in between, you know, kind of idea. And so yeah, there's a lot of these ideas that we really want to do in the future, but yeah, I love the idea.
Yeah, I like the idea of making it unique and different to what's out there at the minute. No need to copy, do something cool and unique to the game itself. So your idea sounds a lot better than just hell portals and transition points.
Right. Yeah. Well, cool question.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks for the question. That's a cool idea, actually. We put Morthog at the final level, just the arena, and that's it, or just a rogue.
Yeah.
Let's do one more question, if that's all right. And I'll let you pick, Chris.
Yeah.
Again, 41 people with their hand raised. You can choose only one.
We'll go with one then. How about that?
Wait, say again. You cut out for a sec.
One. Oh, one.
Oh, one.
Yeah.
It's very easy. There you go. Not a lot of counting.
Hey, what's up, fellas?
Hello.
Thank you for having me. So have you guys considered it feels kind of bad whenever you go to revive someone when they're bleeding out and they just die. Have you thought about maybe pausing the bleed out timer when they're actively being revived?
Yeah, good question. Thanks for reminding me about that. So that is a bug. That shouldn't happen. It should pause it. It has actually, if you did players who've done the alphas with us in the past, it always paused it.
Yeah.
So we have to fix that. Hopefully, I'll follow up with that. I think we could stuff that into that March patch, I think, if it hasn't been fixed already. So yeah, so we want to do that, and we also kind of want to make it so that when you execute a player, they can't give up. So that, you know, you actually get your execute off. It kind of feels weird that you're about to execute and they just quit. So yeah, you know, if you die, you gotta, and they click it, you're gonna have to watch the execute. So that's another thing that we may monetize in the future as well, as executes, like different execute animations. We call it execute 2.0, where it has more of like a little like cutscene kind of thing. You know, if you played Apex or something like that. So anyway, thanks for bringing that up. We will follow up on that one.
Yeah, I wrote that down as well. That's definitely a bug.
Yeah, we could follow up with that one.
If they cancel execute repeatedly, it would keep them trapped. Not necessarily. We can just lock them if you complete the execute, and then you start the animation, and then you're kind of locked into that execute animation, and then we don't let them leave. Yeah, good question. Thanks for the question. And I think we're gonna call it here. Thank you so much for all the questions.
Yeah, we gotta walk the dogs.
Yeah, we gotta walk the dogs. Thanks everyone for the questions, and thank you for being here. Hope you guys keep enjoying the game. Let us know your feedback. Again, we have like a feedback section on Discord, bug reports as well. All the tickets have been amazing. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys next week. I hope we do it again next week. We're gonna do it again next week, right? Most likely.
If it's not next week, it'll be the week after.
Yeah, either that or the
So
week after.
we'll figure it out.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts?
right.
If not.
No. Yeah, we will post details about. So we'll post this video, of course, on YouTube. So if you have friends who missed it, or you missed some of it, or something like that, we will post it there. And we will post also information, if we haven't already, about the Warden program and the Creator program as well. And so anyway, really appreciate everyone's time, and thank you for playing the game. We really love the game. We love playing it with you guys. So yeah, thank you, I guess.
Thanks, guys.